Welcome to Brown Girls Happy Hour. Today we are going to be making an amazing coffee mocktail with our guest Afshan Malik. She is the author of the young adult novel called Pieces, and we are very excited to discuss her book, her journey, her inspiration with her. And I'll just request Daman to join the live, and also Afshan is both of them are joining the live now, and we are going to get started soon.
Hello.
Hi, Daman.
Hi, how
Hi,
are you?
Afshan.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you too.
It's really great to meet you finally.
I I'm like fangirling. I'm like, oh my God, I've been listening to these ladies talk about books and interview people, and here I am. This is so fun.
Thanks so much. Yeah, we are so excited to discuss your book with you. So do you want to give a little bit of your introduction before we start?
Sure. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Afshan Malik, and I'm coming to you guys from Houston, Texas. I was born in Chicago. My parents are from Gujarat, India. I've had a pleasure to visit a couple of times in my childhood, but I'm still waiting to go as an adult with all my five kids. So that's exciting. So anytime we go to any like desi nook around town or anything, they're like, "Is this India?" And I'm just like, "No, no, it's gonna take a little while to get there." Um, so I have a master's degree in nonprofit management. I work for a global nonprofit organization called Rabata, and I wrote a children's book, sorry, a young adult book. And I know adults have enjoyed it a lot too, but I think I framed it as a young adult book because it's nice to get into that age range where people are really like, kids are kind of formulating their ideas about stuff. And still as adults too, I think we kind of go to young adult books for like that nostalgic feel of like, okay, I can like slip into a story, remember all my teen angst and things like that, and just kind of connect in that regard. So I wrote this book in 2019. It was published by Daybreak Press. People have received it really well, and I know that May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think that because the book highlights a lot of mental health issues and kind of brings that topic to light in terms of conversation about how minority cultures handle it, how first or second generation immigrant families handle mental health issues and things like that. It's been pretty cool to just have conversations around that with the book.
Yeah, that's
That's
great. And
awesome.
I love the premise of the book as well. And we're going to discuss it after we make the mocktail. So I think we can just
Yeah, I'm
get
waiting for my caffeine fix. I didn't have my second coffee of the day because we were gonna make this. So let's do that first and then go on to talking about more things.
yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with a glass with ice in it, and then I have some coffee brewed here. It's still hot, so it's gonna be weird. Then some sweetener. I have simple syrup,
Okay, yeah. I have
and
simple syrup.
then lemon juice, about 1 ounce. I'm very curious to taste coffee and lemon, like how that
I,
tastes together.
I'm in coffee, like, okay, stick with my regular, but I'll be yellow to represent the lemon.
All
Okay.
right, cheers.
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 Yay. How is it?
Oh, wow.
Really
I'm
good.
like, why have I never tried this
Yes.
before? I never did.
Yeah, it's mainly just coffee, lemon, and sugar, right? It's so good.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
Now that COVID's done, I should have a brunch and just say, okay, we're doing this cold brew with the lemon twist and see how everyone reacts.
Yeah, I'm impressed. It's so good.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
I would
is,
have never thought that coffee and lime would go together
yeah,
ever.
new way to drink coffee from now on.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
So Afshan, you mentioned your book touches on a lot of subjects like mental health and all. What made you want to write this story in the first place?
so the inspiration for this particular story came from like I was scrolling through media, and at the time there was like the Syrian conflict going on, and there were a lot of like refugee situations, and so a lot of the information that we were getting were from sources from people who were there to begin with, like doctors who had gone to help out and that sort of thing. So and then they came back and they started talking about it. I noticed that in their videos and stuff, they still seemed very much impacted. Like you can tell they seemed kind of like still under that strain. They also were like really remembering all these situations that they were in, if they were in kind of like a combat situation or they were attacked or they had to watch people die, obviously. And so all of that kind of stayed with them. So I was like, wow, this is really interesting because we usually put ourselves, even in a story situation or when we're hearing about people's stories, into like that first person of like the person in, you know, inside that particular moment. And in this case, I was like, it'd be interesting to explore what life was like after someone went through those experiences and came back to like their normal reality, right? Because even us as South Asians, like we know things that are going on back home, like for example, COVID and all of the, you know, the rampage that's happened across India and things like that. And we're so far removed geographically, but it's like this distorted reality that we're facing. So in this situation, I'm like, I wanted to map out a story that was talking about a male protagonist, so which we usually don't get to see that perspective of like a man who's of a minority culture who goes, you know, and then he has to go through like a mental health situation. So the character of Adam, he's, you know, the family dad, the patriarch, very loving, jovial, happy, goes into this humanitarian mission overseas and then comes back injured, but also comes back with like these mental health, like he has PTSD, he has post-traumatic stress disorder. And then his family, you know, being like the normal family, the two daughters and the wife, they have to kind of understand how to navigate his new reality and then their new reality, which is like the ripple effect of like having someone who's mentally ill in your house. And I think that, you know, in regards to like establishing some empathy with readers, and it was kind of cool to see that people were like, oh, I can see myself in the shoes of the daughter or like the shoes of the wife and say, wow, what would I do in that situation if like I had someone who was mentally ill in the family? It also kind of sheds light on just people that we already, you know, in our communities or our family networks who may be struggling with like different issues and just like how it's not isolated to that one person, right? Like the entire family and like their network, their community, friend circle and stuff like that, like they're all impacted. So I definitely like brought that inspiration of like seeing how everyday people who had gone overseas and were impacted by different things come back and kind of learn how to navigate that, and also how the people around them were also trying to navigate that new reality.
Right. Yeah. And also the title of the book is very interesting, Pieces. Did you like come up with the title yourself?
I did, yeah. Originally, it was called Picking Up the Pieces. And then I thought, you know, I think with the publisher and stuff, we're like, you know, pieces just makes a great impact because, you know, in a family unit, you're usually thinking, okay, it's a family, you know, you're a tight-knit situation. Even as siblings, like, you know, the sisters in the book, for example, each chapter journeys and alternates from perspectives, right? So you start off one chapter with one person's perspective, and the second chapter goes to the second, and so on. So you get like all four members of the family's kind of perspective on life. And so it was really cool to highlight in just the title, just how fragmented a family unit could become. And it's like they're all just kind of like floating pieces. And so the cover kind of indicates that as well, where you see like these little fragmented pieces. Like it's a whole, you know, it's like this beautiful art piece as a whole, but in like when you look deeply in it, it's like these fragments of like little bubbles kind of like falling back. So that was, I mean, it's kind of reality of life too, right? Like we're all sort of fragmented, you know, beings in like a whole situation. So that was, it was really cool to explore with the title too.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And also, I want to just like quickly circle back to your favorite female icon that you said, Razia Sultana. And how is, like, I don't know a lot about historical women, so can you please like explain to us
Yeah,
who she
my
was?
references are very limited to, I think there was a Hema Malini movie
Yeah.
in Bollywood. That's all I know of it.
Yeah, same here. So like when I heard, I actually learned about Razia Sultan through the organization I work for now. So the organization has like an education branch. And so every year during Women's History Month, they debut another historical woman from a different part of the world. So like someone from like the Morocco, like, you know, just I think there was someone from Morocco, someone from Africa, someone from where, so like all these geographical locations and like different historical women who made like a really big impact on their society. So one of the first women they had highlighted was Razia Sultan, and I was just like, oh my gosh, she's from India. This is so interesting. So then I started reading a bit more, and I was like, this is amazing because this was, like a historical woman who was in like the 1300s, was like a courageous and intelligent ruler. Like she was a woman. And in that time, it was not normal for a woman to be a leader of an entire sultanate, right? Like this was, her establishment as an entity. Even to this day, people are like, wow, like she was, this Muslim woman who ruled the Delhi Sultanate. And that was so interesting also because of like that relationship with her father, because he had sons also that he could have given over his kingdom to, right? Like he could have been like, okay, we're going to stick with like this patriarchal hierarchy of like, here's the son's going to do this, but the sons were kind of losers. So he's like, my daughter is going to rule. So he gave her the rule. And she was, it was really beautiful because her role, it was short. She was eventually, I think she was killed because of like jealousy and stuff like that. But she, established law and order. She founded schools and libraries and research centers. She pushed for minority rights. So, India is like this beautiful country with a rich history. And we know that before, like, the British rule, like everyone kind of lived pretty harmoniously together and celebrated each other's differences more than we see now. And I feel like this was highlighted during like Razia Sultan's rule because it's just a beautiful journey into seeing like, wait, there's a woman who was able to rule in a time that was not predominantly open to women ruling. And so of course, when you like study more into like the research in her life and stuff, there were people who weren't into having a woman lead and rule, but she was able to do it and she's able to make a really cool impact. So learning about her was really fun. So I was like, oh, this would, as brown girls read, a really fun brown girl to highlight and give props to.
Yeah, that's a really great piece. And yeah, thank you for enlightening us about her. We are definitely going to go back and read on her and, get ourselves educated.
I have to look up the like the movies and the dramas and stuff too, because I'm, when I Google it, the Bollywood stuff comes up and I'm like, well, I haven't seen any of it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure how accurate the Bollywood stuff would be. But yeah. Hearing you speak, I was actually thinking like not much has changed, right, since that time to today. Even now, people don't want female leaders really. But what you said, that she established law and order, she opened school, and these are the things you can still see when countries are led by female like prime ministers. New Zealand being a great example during the COVID times, right? So it's like history repeating itself, people still ignoring to see those patterns.
I know it's so sad, but it's like, look, there's so much proof in women leading being so impactful and positive for the society.
Yeah, right. And even in books, I think we need more female representation as well. I think, yeah, females are generally better writers. I said it.
Yeah. Better. And then like we know that women have been kind of pushed aside, right? Even in literature, like had to write under pseudonyms and like write under and to get ahead. And I'm sure a lot of literature was stolen by men too. Like, oh, I'll just take that was written by my assistant secretary or researcher and just put my name on it.
Or even wives. Men did that. Like they would just take the credit for whatever their wives created.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And this is, it's prominent today too. Like if we look at like academic researchers, for example, like they have research assistants. And if you put a man's name on something, it's more well received or better received than it is if it's from the woman who's written it, who's done the hard work behind it. So down with that. Let's, keep pushing women. I think that's the one thing I like about the publishing press that published pieces is that they specifically highlight Muslim women authors, and they publish books by Muslim women authors because Muslim women in general, like the minority population, have been written about so much and exoticized, and like, this whole perspective of like, oh, well, we're going to write about this culture and these women and these people that we don't really know, versus just saying, hey, why don't we just, promote and put elevation to the women themselves who've written about themselves instead, right? Like that's not as exciting as someone else doing it for them, it seems.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And I think one of my next questions is, so what are you writing right now? Or like what can we expect next?
So I'm a really methodical planner. Like I didn't, major in anything math or science related, much to my parents' dismay, of course. But I like to map out my book plan. So what I even did with pieces was I made like a chapter by chapter outline of like what the story will look like, and then I filled it in. So like every day I'd write like the chapter. So for this particular, like I have a series of short stories that I'm working on, and I love short stories, and I feel like the queen of short stories is obviously Chimpa Lahiri, because she's magical, right? Like she's amazing. But I enjoyed her short stories so much, so I always have this connection to like something that can just be so gripping in like a short frame of time. So working on a series of short stories, and also people have been asking about like a follow-up to pieces because they kind of wonder what happens next. So without giving spoilers, of course, even though I love spoilers, like whenever I'm reading a book, I'll go to the last page and at first, and then I'll start the book. But with pieces, they're like, well, what happens to the family? Because they became so invested in like that journey of like understanding how to handle the father's mental illness, and did he eventually like, recover? Is he okay? How is that managed? And how are things now, basically? So I've like lightly mapped out that story too, but of course there's no like happy fairy tale ending, but in books you can actually have a happy fairy tale ending. So
Yeah.
fingers are crossed that, readers have something to look forward to there.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting, actually.
Yeah,
And
sequels are exciting.
yeah. And what are you reading right now?
Wow, I'm reading like probably 10 books right now. I'm halfway through 10 books right now. I just finished a few of the books I finished were recently The Beauty of Your Face by I think Sahara Mustafa, and she's like a beautiful writer, and it was just like so wonderful to kind of read a story about like another Muslim woman protagonist in Chicago. It's like, that connectivity of like where you grew up and things like that. So me having, been born in Chicago, grew up in Chicago, it was kind of cool to journey through that. I read Muslim Cool by Dr. Abdul Khabir, which is a cool journey into like Muslims and hip hop. By the book is like a more of a romance book based on like Jane Austen series by Julia Sonburn, I think. And that was a kind of a fun read. And so I was like going through it and like excited to kind of have this like, again, like happy ending, like a nice romantic story where, two people get together and you're just like, oh, yay. And so, you just get happy and excited. So I definitely lean towards more like just happy fiction, escapism. I love like Harry Potter, fantasy books, and things like that. So I definitely do a lot of rereading of books that I'm journeying to.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
What about you guys? What are you reading now?
I'm reading Carry On Warrior by Glennon Doyle. It's a good book. I don't relate to it too much right now because I don't have kids, and she has talked a lot about parenting in that book. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just skipping chapters.
I think it was like I forget the exact title, but like maybe it was like Confessions of I don't know what, but like Planting Dandelions. And so I don't ever want to like knock an author, but like maybe because I have 5 kids and I have done like I am like doing the home thing a lot. I'm like, I can't read this. I can't, like, I need to escape from it. So like when I'm reading, I'm like, I have to go to the complete opposite reality.
Yeah, right. I'm also reading a nonfiction right now called The Mom Test. It's about entrepreneurship and stuff. So yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I did not Get Rich, but like I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi, and he's really popular. Like, the book was really interesting. I was like, I appreciate a lot of the information because again, as women, like we're not taught to be like philanthropically like smart or like financially savvy or making decisions about money, right?
We have talked about this on our podcast as well. I think we kicked off this year with the financial discussion.
That's
right.
For sure. And like, what are you going to do except like, educate yourself and gain that financial literacy?
Right.
Yeah, it's so much of self-learning because it's not handed to you like men get from like their families or just the environment in general. So yeah, it's like extra homework you have to do for yourself.
And then it's weird dichotomy because you're, you know, like you're just a BC woman. So when you start talking about things like, oh, stocks or your 401k, like your insurance or something, there everyone's like, what are you talking about?
No, let's
Or,
come back and discuss potlucks.
I,
Let's not talk about that.
I'm like, can we talk about something while we're cooking?
Let's talk about kids and marriages and fashion, like all the ways we can spend money, but not the ways we can make money.
Right. Daman, do you have any question for Afshan?
No,
Some.
I don't have a question. I actually wanted to share the book I am reading. It's called the what's it? Hour of the Witch. It's a mystery and it's set in like 1600s. So it's in US and it's around the whole witch hunt that used to happen. Like if a woman
Oh,
is opinionated, if a woman has like wants a divorce, the husband's abuse was totally accepted in the story, but the woman wanting a divorce was not. So I'm kind of midway, and it's really interesting to read. I mean,
Do
it
you know?
makes you angry, but it's also interesting to read.
So for mysteries too, I have to find out who's the who done it or who's the person who did it or whatever. So I go to the back of the mystery books and then I'll be like, okay, I can read it now because I know the ending
I
will be
used to do that. I've learned to stop now.
good. You get to secure it.
right. Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Afshan, for joining us today. It was really great talking to you about pieces and, discussing your journey and your inspiration. Do you have any last, like any message for our listeners or viewers?
Yeah, I definitely want to thank you guys. This was a fun for me, and I know right now there's a lot going on in the world, so I definitely want to kind of highlight and give that voice out to people to kind of go out, do research, and learn about the different things that are going on, like authentic voices. So this could be anything from like your minority authors that you're reading about like the different cultures. This could be like the Palestinian situation going on right now. Like definitely go to those authentic voices and elevate those, because we learned like from history, like it's just this repeat effect, like we talked about, like we're just constantly marginalized, constantly like having colonizers and people who are the like authoritative lead kind of take over, right? Whether this is like the patriarchy or a government or something like that. So definitely for us readers, like dig deep, explore more. And if you like, reading pieces, definitely let me know. I love hearing about the feedback to the book for sure.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're so excited to, read the sequel as well. And we're waiting.
You get to writing, Afshan. There are people waiting.
First, we'll debut here.
Thank you,
All right.
Afshan.
Thanks,
And
Afshan.
Take
Cheers.